What's really striking to me of late is the hypocrisy and the extremism from the left. And it's really not the Democrat Party anymore. It's this woke progressive left-wing movement, which has actually been usurped by something else. I'll talk about that later. But it's just the hypocrisy of it all, and the disproportionate response is really shocking. And I don't think it's just to me. I think it's to so many people out there. But to put it in perspective, because this didn't just start most recently when Trump became president, it's been going on for quite some time. So just as one example and a lead into the conversation, we're going to go all the way back to the George Floyd protests. Here you go.
Protests over Floyd's death quickly erupted in Minneapolis and soon after spiraled out of control, with the city overwhelmed with incidents of looting and destruction and a governor who did next to nothing. His name was Tim Walz. A report by the city finding the riots caused 133 structure fires, $500 million in damage, again, just from May 25th to June 3rd of 2020. Here's some of it.
Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up!
9901, 9901 emergency. We got individuals breaching the gate at the 3rd precinct. We also got people trying to breach the front doors.
Let's just breach the back gate. You're taking heavy rock.
Heavy rock. Airing information citywide. The 3rd precinct has been compromised.
3rd precinct is up in flames.
We're gonna move back. They're starting to throw Molotov cocktails. We're going.
In perhaps the most dramatic moment, rioters took over Minneapolis's 3rd precinct. You heard it referenced there, burning it to the ground. That happened on May 28th, exactly 5 years ago today. Here's what officers said about that event from an Alpha News documentary.
So I get a command over the radio that we need to evacuate the 3rd precinct.
Evacuate now. Evacuate now.
I said, like, right now?
Do we have to evacuate right now?
And they said, yes, immediately. We run. We run with our belts on and 50-some people and 3 SWAT teams, and we get to the fence. We can't get out.
We gotta go. We're sitting ducks here.
There was only one way in and one way out, and the way out was locked.
1283, they breached the northwest corner of the front.
Northwest corner of the front has been breached.
They're coming in the back. We need to move.
Need to move now.
One of the squads rams through the fence to get it open.
I remember looking through the rearview mirror as we left. It looked like a zombie movie. They all just rushed to the fence and started climbing the fence, and they caused the fences to collapse, and then they just all rushed the precinct.
But as I got maybe a quarter block away, I realized that not everyone was in vehicles. They were running basically for their lives at that point.
This is allowed.
Of note is who the governor was when all that happened. Of course, that was Tim Walz, who's still the governor of Minnesota. He was complicit in allowing that to happen. Just extreme violence. And it wasn't just in Minnesota. It was across the country. Billions of dollars worth of property damage, people running for their lives, people being murdered. And then where's the accountability? Where is the response that these people need to be arrested? How many people are arrested? I mean, that's about as violent a protest as it can get. Whether it's justified or not is not the point. The point is when people do that kind of damage, not just to property, but when they actually hurt and kill people, there needs to be a response from law enforcement, FBI investigation, what the heck is going on, how to get that far out of control. But none of that happened, of course. Not at all. Now, what we do have are examples of how Republicans are persecuted when they do something not even remotely close to that. And I'll give you the example of the father and son who went to an abortion clinic, and apparently there was an altercation and somebody may have put their hands on the son. The father got upset. There was some pushing and shoving, but that's as bad as it got. A year later, The FBI under the Biden administration, so you got Biden in office, you got his DOJ, you got his FBI. The FBI, a year later, shows up at the family house at O'Dark 30 to arrest him for something that happened a year prior. And that's what I'm talking about with the hypocrisy, the disproportionate response, and the extremism. The left wing of this country tolerates extreme violence, as in those protests. And they're by far not the only examples. We could talk about what happened in Oregon, where there were violent protests in Oregon. Nobody's getting arrested. The protesters, BLM, Antifa, and others went so far as to light a federal building on fire from the inside while federal employees were in the building, and then lock the building from the outside, thereby threatening the lives of the federal employees that were in the building that they just lit on fire and locked from the outside. Again, where's the FBI? The left at that point in time was upset with Donald Trump because he was talking about sending in the National Guard just to restore some sort of safety and control. That's the response from the left. But we go back to this father, his family. All he did was go to an abortion clinic, and he wasn't being violent. He wasn't being obnoxious. He was there. And he ends up getting arrested by the FBI. Just the hypocrisy and the extremism from the left is absolutely unbelievable. And of course, it's going on today. More recent examples of the hypocrisy and the extremism from the left and just the misplaced priorities from the left. So take the case with Garcia, who we know beyond a shadow of a doubt because of court documents is a wife beater. We know that. We know also that he was a human trafficker, which is terrifying when you think about what he was caught doing, human trafficking. We know he was a member of a gang. We know he was here illegally. We know that 2 immigration courts said to deport the guy. And then when he's deported, the Democrats decide that they want to do a wellness check. And of course, Garcia had his own representative from the state of Maryland go there and have margaritas during a wellness check in support of a violent, criminal, illegal alien. Even more recently, we had the young lady that was going to join our military, serve in the military, an unselfish act, as unselfish as it can get, volunteer her life to serve and protect others. And she was murdered by 2 people who were in the country illegally, by the way, going through the process of being deported. And we all know how long that can unfortunately take, in no small part because of Democrats. But nonetheless, she's murdered by 2 illegal aliens. There's video of these 2 illegal aliens fleeing the scene. Eventually, they get holed up in a house. And of course, there are plenty of good citizens in the area that recognized her picture. And that led to the arrest of both her and the gentleman that helped drive her away. And where's the left? I mean, we literally just had an innocent young lady who was going to join our military get murdered by 2 people who should never have been here, who were led here by the administration of openness, the Democrat Party, and they ended up killing somebody. And how many times do we have to go through this? These people who are violent, criminal, illegal aliens are hurting, harming, killing people every day. We just don't hear about all of them. How many times do they assault somebody? It never makes the news. Abuse somebody, traffic somebody. It doesn't make the news. And where is the Democrat Party supporting the Americans who are being victimized by these illegal aliens? They'd rather not get these people deported. And when they are deported, they'd rather go have margaritas with them. I mean, it's the hypocrisy and the extremism is absolutely unbelievable, but it doesn't end there. The extremism and we'll call it hypocrisy or intolerance of the left wing of this country also impacts Democrats. And we'll talk about the case of John Fetterman briefly. So John Fetterman, as you may recall, was, as in past tense, a darling of the Democrat Party. He was representative from Pennsylvania, key battleground state. He was rather eccentric, certainly outspoken. The Democrats viewed him as somebody who could help ensure that Pennsylvania remained Democrat. It's very important to the Democrats being a battleground state, important to the Republicans as well, but we're focusing on Democrats now. John Fetterman had some strokes, affected him mentally, affected his speech. And many people were saying, I don't know if he can remain in office, but Democrats were still behind him at the time because he helps the cause. He helps the left-wing cause of the Democrat Party. Speed forward to the elections leading up to 2024. What the Democrats didn't realize is that John Fetterman was very independent. I don't mean he's an independent, but I do mean he's a Pennsylvania Democrat. And Pennsylvania Democrats aren't as extreme as the Democrat Party may wish them or like them to be. He's a free thinker. He has his own opinions. So as we're ramping up to the 2024 election, of course, we have the issue with October 7th in Israel and Hamas and Israel and the war in Gaza. And John Fetterman does the unspeakable. He goes against the left-wing line of the party, and he supports Israel, openly supports Israel, and he absolutely does not support Hamas. He's not a spoken critic of Hamas. And that went completely contrary to what the left wing expects somebody like John Fetterman to do and say. And as we get closer to the 2024 election, he is certainly not a Trump hater, which of course has brought us to today, where the Democrats are trying to destroy John Fetterman. And there's a little image of what I'm talking about. There's nothing wrong with John Fetterman from a medical condition standpoint. It hasn't changed. What's changed is the left wing has turned on him. You will toe the line of the left wing or they will destroy you. Whether you're an actress, a business owner, a politician, in the case of John Fetterman, it doesn't matter. If you do not toe the line, they will destroy you. And that gets to just the hypocrisy and the extremism of the left wing is really a problem. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but I bring up the case of John Fetterman to make the point. Going a little bit further about intolerance, hypocrisy, and extremism, let's talk about the whole LGBTQI plus and the trans movement for a little bit. Now, bear in mind, in my extended family, I have one person who's been gay. He's been gay since he's been alive. And I've always supported him 110%. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, support of him to be who he is. And I know some Christians aren't going to like this, but if we do truly believe that God creates us in his image, I remember when I saw pictures of him as a 3-year-old. I knew, I'm like, my gosh, he's gay. He just is. Okay, so you have to make a choice. You support or not support. And of course, I support it. That's my job. Love him to death. So bear that in mind. I also have an individual in the family who's queer. And same thing, support her in her decision. The problem with the left wing of the country is you give them an inch, then they take a mile. So I'm a classic example of a conservative who is fairly liberal. And I'm sure conservatives are going to hate to hear that. Liberal from a social standpoint, purely in the sense that I truly believe we don't judge. People have the right to be who they are. But the problem with the left is when you give them an inch, they take a mile. So here I am in my extended family, in my mind, doing the right thing. And then all of a sudden, as time goes on, and as they get older, I'm now a problem. I'm an extremist because I'm a Christian. I'm an extremist because I'm a veteran. You know, I support military veterans and they're fascist. It just, where in the holy heck did all that come from? You know, it's right for me in my mind to give them the freedom and be non-judgmental and say it's okay to be who you are. Well, it's okay for me to be who I am without being judged. You know, what works for you has got to work for me too. But that wasn't the end of it. The pronouns. You know, I am a male. I am not a cis male. You don't get to come up with new definitions of me. Just like I give you the freedom to be who you are. Don't tell me who I am. I'm well aware of who I am, as are most of us in the world. Okay, there are two sexes. It's okay to be different, to be who you are. But the give an inch, take a mile part is all of a sudden we were told our pronouns had to be changed. And of course, that did not work out. The majority of the country has had it with that. But it goes further. It's okay, we say, if you're trans, going trans this way or trans that way. Okay. What's not okay is to take the freedoms of individuals, I'm talking about biological girls in this case, from them because you want your freedom. I've argued forever that we need more bathrooms. We need biological male, biological female, trans this way, trans that way. We need 4 sets of bathrooms. It's going to cost money, infrastructure, whatever, but it gives people the opportunity and the privacy and the freedom to be who they are in a private environment. My argument with the trans movement is, how dare you try to get your freedom by stealing it from somebody else? That will never work. That's creating conflict, and you know it's creating conflict. We'll get more into where that conflict comes from in a little bit. But don't just take it from me. Martina Navratilova, who's been gay longer than I've been alive, has had enough of this trans taking over biological female sport. She's an incredibly successful tennis player. She is absolutely not a Republican or a conservative by any stretch. But she was shocked to have to say, I can't believe it's the conservatives that are actually supporting biological females. Of course, her point is like mine. If you want to be trans going male to female, female to male, that's fine. But you need to compete in your own separate categories, guys and gals. Okay, you don't take privacy, invade the privacy, visually assault biological girls by walking in the girls' locker room with your male genitalia. And likewise, you don't take trophies from these biological girls because you just now decide that you're a female and want to stand as the first place winner in whatever event you're competing in. And she agrees with that as well. But it goes further. You give them an inch and they take a mile. This has been a rather serious video, so we're going to lighten up with some comedy, truly from a comedian who's putting this, if you give them an inch, they take a mile, and then I'll come back. But first, watch the video. Here you go.
Gay Pride Month seems a little greedy. It's a month. We only get 12. 4 weeks in a row. We get Veterans Day. You fight for the country, you get a day. Thank you for fighting for the country. Oh, sorry, day's over. Take the meat off the barbecue. That's it. You get a day. That's it. Day. Thank you for fighting for the country. Memorial Weekend. You die for the country. They give you a weekend. Thank you for dying for the country. Take the boat out of the lake, put it on. Take the boat out of the lake, put it on the truck. You get a weekend. Memorial Weekend. Thank you for dying for the country. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, kept the Union together, gets a day. Not even his own day. He's got to share it with George Washington, who founded the whole fucking country. He doesn't get a day either. He's got to share it with Lincoln. But if they would have sucked each other's dicks, they would have got a whole month. That's all I'm saying.
It's really become a problem. You know, when is enough enough? And the country as a majority has had enough. Really, truly have had enough. And that's why we have Donald Trump as president. We have a Republican majority in the House and the Senate, because the country is speaking by voting and saying, okay, it's gone too far. You want your freedom, but that doesn't mean you take the freedom, the privacy, and visually assault, biological girls in the shower, in the locker room. That's going too far. And you can take that with holidays. When is Easter? Okay, and who in their right mind decided it was a good day to have a gay pride celebration on the same day as Easter? And here's a visual to explain and kind of hammer the point home and give you a hint on where all this is coming from. Easter is an extremely significant holy day, religious day for hundreds of millions of Christians around the world. It's our day. Okay, that period, end of story. Been like that forever. But now LGBTQI plus decides that they want to put their holiday smack on top of it, and we get conflict. So the next point of the conversation is, where is this conflict coming from? And the answer of the source of the conflict and why we see the hypocrisy, the extremism, the answer is quite simple. It's coming from cultural Marxism. And people are going to think, oh my gosh, that's extreme. No, it's not at all. Y'all just don't understand it as well as I do because I've read countless books on the subject. Let me elaborate. To my left-wing friends out there, you all support critical theory. We all have heard about critical theory, but do you know where critical theory came from? And the answer is most of you don't, because they don't really want you to know. Because if you did know, then maybe you wouldn't be such a fan of critical theory. So allow me to pull back the veil of secrecy. Critical theory was created by Marxists. So I'm going to put an image of a book up on the screen. And I would encourage everybody to go to Amazon, get the book, and read the book. It's a relatively short read. It's like 5 inches by 8 inches, 108, 107 pages, 116 footnotes. So it's extremely fact-based. And it will tell you where critical theory came from. Long story short, a bunch of Marxists came from Germany to this country in the mid-1930s, hosted by the president of Columbia University, the same university that allows Hamas protesters to terrorize Jews. Same university. So these Marxists come to the country in the mid-1930s, and by the late 1930s, they created critical theory, which was nothing more than, and we know this for a fact because we have the written words from Adorno, who is a Marxist. The whole point was to create conflict, to identify a group of people they could label, falsely if need be, as authoritarian, i.e. fascist, i.e. oppressor. And guess who they figured that would be? You got it, the conservatives of the country. And then the other group that would militantly, they use that word, oppose the first group. So critical theory is nothing more than the creation of oppressor and oppressed. Put them in a conflict, destabilize the country, and we become a uniparty country and shift towards Marxism. That's what they want. It's not extreme once you read the book and understand factually where all this comes from. What I would say to everybody out there is we all need to collectively stop letting people play us. And let's go back to Easter. The Christians are not the oppressors, guys. And I could argue that it feels like the LGBTQI plus are the oppressor because they've taken a significantly religious holiday that's existed for centuries and all of a sudden decided that it's going to be theirs as well. So I could say that LGBTQI plus are the oppressors. The reality is neither LGBTQI plus or Christians are the oppressors. We're being oppressed. We are being forced into conflict by cultural Marxists using Freudian psychology. That's a fact. They create conflict to destabilize. And we all just need to take a step back, read, and I would encourage you to get the book, read the book, and understand calmly, intelligently, what the heck is going on. And then it all makes sense. You know, why are the Democrats supporting criminal, illegal, violent aliens? You know, why are they doing that? And part of it is because it's creating conflict. It serves a bigger purpose for them. It puts us into perpetual conflict. And the sooner we understand that, the better everything will be for everybody. And instead of being divided over everything in this country, we can finally be unified again. And I would just encourage everybody to read, self-educate yourselves, enjoy the book, and then kind of take a step back and unemotionally understand what the heck is going on, from the Schumers, the Pelosi's, the AOC's, the very left-wing people in this country who are creating the division. I hope you enjoyed the video. I would really enjoy seeing your comments down below. Let me know what you think about this creation of conflict and where it comes from and how best to address it and how best to handle it. And by the way, Bernie Sanders is another one of them who is, you know, he may not want to say he's a Marxist, but he certainly has run as a socialist. You know, so what do you think about that? Do you recognize it? Do you understand that we are being put into conflict when there need not be conflict? And then I'd love to read your comments as far as how to get past this and how to heal the country and get us unified, you know, loving each other, loving our country, being a little bit less selfish, being more unselfish, like that young lady who was going to join the military, serve her country, and unfortunately was murdered by people here illegally. we've got to take a step back and intelligently look at this, and it all starts with education. So hope you enjoyed the video. So give it a thumbs up. Comments down below. I'd really like to see what you're thinking. And subscribe if you want to see more like it. And then, as always, until next time, God bless. Love you all.